no kinak semdol ka ke mo fa seda.
Welcome to Talking in Stations, a podcast about EVE Online. I'm your host, Matterall. With me today is Elise Randolph.
Hello.
And Artyh from Talking in Stations.
Hello.
Hey, Artyh, tell us where you're from, because this is one of the first times you've been on the show.
Sure. So I've been playing EVE for about 10 years. I'm in the Nullsec Alliance, a tactical narcotics team, a member of the Imperium.
Great. Okay, and as guests today, we have I was going to make a German joke, because both these guys are from Deutschland, but I want to introduce Killaby.
Hello.
And Pandorolica, known as Pando from the Initiative.
Yo, yo.
Neither one really needs an introduction. They've been on many times, and they're super famous in the game. But yeah, so we've got a few things to talk about this week, and that mostly is going to be the DDoS attacks. We'll try to get you as much information on that as we can. We've already released a PSA on TIS Discord, but we'll try to fill in some blanks if we can. And also, we definitely want to talk about the war up north and see what's going on up there with Killaby and maybe Pando, because we think that Goonswarm just deployed up there with a new SIG. And then we're going to round out talking about a really cool podcast, if you haven't listened to it. Actually, I should say episode of Pando FC Chats, which featured Killaby. So it was Pando and Killaby, the two guys that are here today. And it was about 2.5 hours of solid FC talk. So that was pretty cool. How you doing, Elise?
Pretty good. I mean, one of the areas that's affected like the worst for the DDoS attacks. So I haven't been able to get into EVE all week, and I've been going through like this weird withdrawal symptoms. So I've been like mimicking EVE on other games that I play.
Yeah. Are you like chewing on plastic or something?
I mean, pretty much. It's gotten pretty grim. I'm not gonna lie.
Are you scratching your skin everywhere? Oh, I shouldn't joke about that. That's serious stuff. Anyway, let's get going. DDoS attacks. Artyh, you know what these things are. Can you tell us what they are, what they do?
Yeah, a DDoS attack is a distributed denial of service, and it's meant to disrupt servers or networks. And for the last week, we've been having a lot of troubles logging in and playing EVE. Some people can log in, some people can't. Even if you do log in, it might be sluggish, you might get disconnected. And some people are having more problems than others, especially if you're in the US, and especially if you're on the East Coast. And for some players, it's completely unplayable.
This game is inaccessible, basically.
And then if you do get in, the chat servers are all down, so it's blackout for everyone all over the place.
Yeah, it's really been disruptive because there's a lot of operations and fleets that folks have had to cancel. Either the FCs can't log in or their fleet members can't log in. And I hear some people are losing SOV because they can't get in to defend their structures.
Yikes.
One of the questions that surfaced in the community is, can we use VPNs to connect to EVE? And a VPN is a virtual private network. It allows you to change your connection route. So it can improve your speed and get around connection issues. They tend to be a little bit more common in competitive games that are ping dependent. And yesterday, CCP issued a statement of VPNs saying while they don't endorse it, it's not against the rules. So it seems CCP is understanding that people are asking about VPNs and it's okay to use them.
Let's talk about that for a second, because something interesting came up in our conversations yesterday that people that use VPNs, you said it's a ping issue. So I imagine the way that works is that somebody dials in through a virtual network to a local area to where the server is that they're playing on, so they can get a faster response rate. Is that how that works?
And that's exactly right. In ping-dependent games, lowering your ping from say 200 milliseconds to 50 or 70 can give you an advantage in some other games, especially FPS games or fast-paced MMOs. It really isn't something we see in Eve because Eve has that 1 second tick. So even if you improve your ping a little bit, it doesn't really change your gameplay all that much. But now that we're having these connection issues, the question comes up because you can use a VPN to get around these connection issues, especially if you're in an area of the world where you can't connect at all.
Right. Now, here's the funny thing, and this is what we were talking about yesterday. It's dangerous to use a VPN in EVE Online because if you're dialing in to a service, you can actually get banned for no apparent reason. Can you explain how that works?
Right. In the article CCP puts out yesterday, there's a caveat. And one of the things that the CCP does and other game companies do is if there's a bad actor or someone breaking the rules, sometimes they'll ban the player and ban everyone on that IP address. So most of the time when we all connect, we're using our own IP addresses. But when you use a VPN, you're going to a virtual network and then coming out some endpoint, and you might be sharing that IP address with other players. If one of those other players gets banned and CCP decides to ban everyone on an IP address, you might get inadvertently banned. They did put a note in there describing that could happen to you. If it does, log a ticket.
So you can get it sorted out, but it's going to take you some paperwork and some time to let them know you're not actually botting or doing anything against the rules. Just because you dialed in on an IP that some criminal used earlier. That's kind of funny. Very Eve. All right. So one other announcement is that there is, well, we'll talk about this a little bit as a group, but one last thing I want to get out there is that Dunk, CSM member, put out a survey. What's that survey about?
So Dunk put out a survey. He posted on Twitter. And this survey is asking players to share what they're seeing. Can you log into Eve? Does the launcher work? And then finally, it asks you to share your region, where you're located. And this is going to help CCP understand where players are having the most issue.
My final question, and this is to all of us, Arya first, but is it CCP's fault that people can't play EVE Online right now? That's not a fake question. I don't know the answer to that.
No. Yeah, it's, a lot of people have different opinions about it.
That's why I asked.
Any company, whether it's CCP or it's any other game company, it's a combination of what can CCP do to mitigate it, what can their provider do to mitigate it. I'm sure they're taking steps, but it's not going to be perfect. I played other games where a DDoS affects them for a day, affects a week. As a player, there's not much we can do but ride it out. And then if you do decide you want to use a VPN, that's an option you can do to get back and play the game you like playing.
So there were some rumors about like who is behind all that stuff. Do we actually know, or is it just speculation anyway? Because from what I heard, there was like a botter getting banned, and then it's his revenge and shit. And I mean, one of the reasons why I think DDoS is more common now, because it's way cheaper now to do it. And that might be an ongoing issue for years now. Then this might just be the beginning. Who knows?
Yeah, so, I don't think CCP haven't said officially, at least in any capacity that I know or that I can see, like what's causing it, who they think is behind it, or anything like that. And I think that's from when I talk to people, like obviously people get frustrated when they can't play their game, but most people are like more frustrated that CCP hasn't come out and said anything. Like their corporate policy obviously is to be like, hey guys, we want to have like the full picture before we say anything, so just don't say anything. And I doubt that when they made that strategy, they expected it to go on for 7 days. But it is super frustrating to have like a company where like we know the developers, like we talk to them regularly, we can interact with them in different forms of media, just for them all to be like completely silent That's the most frustrating part for, I think, a lot of people.
Well, so I just wanted to say, like, so if it's a bodder, let's just assume it's a bodder that's, you know, getting revenge or whatever, then I would tend to give that fault to CCP, because they could have done more against botting before, right? If botting wasn't a thing, and I believe there's ways to, you know, get rid of botting, or significant botting in nullsec at the very least, then, you know, over time that wouldn't be a big issue. Like a local delay, for example.
The way I look at it, I work in retail, right? If I have a customer that comes to one of my stores and they want to buy milk and they can't get milk, they're going to get mad, right? And you can explain to them, well, it's because there's been some delivery issues with the milk, or the truck had an accident on the highway or whatever. The customer isn't going to care. He wants his milk, right? So what he does is he goes to another store and buys his milk there. And at the end of the day, in my opinion, no matter what the reason is, the customer should never feel anything that's going on, whatever it may be, right? And something like DDoS is something where a company can prepare for. There is very good DDoS protection out there that I would argue would probably help them fix this if they would be willing to pay for proper DDoS protection. But apparently they aren't, or whatever. So this is happening, right? In my opinion, the customer, obviously they come up with a statement and they say every day there's some issues going on. You have the community guys tweeting, well, we're really sorry you're experiencing these issues, guys. We're working on it very hard. We hope you understand. No, I'm a customer. I want to play your game. I don't care what's going on behind the scenes. Like, that's at the end of the day how the world works, right? So I feel like they could prepare. I feel like they could prepare a lot better than they are. And usually the problem is that, and this is not directed at CCP necessarily, but most of the time it's just because people don't prep properly, or they say, well, we're never going to need this kind of DDoS protection anyways. And then, this kind of thing happens. And now they're suddenly realizing, well, maybe they should go for the better DDoS protection after all. Maybe it costs them a bunch more money. But, I like this PR they're getting at the moment, this whole week. It's just been a giant, everybody's just making fun of CCP, at least the people that I talk to. Mm-hmm. Everybody's just making fun tweets about how they're, day 5 without playing Eve, like Elise, for example. And it's the same. This morning, sorry, go on.
It's like being in a desert, right? It's like writing in your diary because you're dying of thirst. There's no milk.
And, maybe this is a bit different between retail and gaming companies, because at the end of the day, as soon as everything's fixed, most of those people are going to come back and play their game anyways. So because there's not much, at least in the case of Eve, there's not much alternatives you have out there. So I understand that there's a difference between retail and, this kind of stuff. But I don't know, to me, the customer doesn't have to care.
And that's why we want to clear it up, right? You can get mad at your dealer, right? You can get mad at CCP saying what do you mean you don't have the stuff? I got a party to go to. But we're trying to say, look, man, the supply got cut off in Korea. We got nothing for you. So we want to kind of let people know that that this is not just CCP being hit. I heard that other people were being hit too, like Steam or something.
So I've been playing a Steam game for the last 5 days, and I've been doing just fine.
Okay,
he's been addicted to what's the game called? Temtem?
Temtem, yeah.
But
I noticed one day where I couldn't actually log into Steam, or there was a login issue. Yes, that was the day it initially happened for Steam. It took them half an hour, and I could log in and play the game. Mm-hmm. Right? Everybody has been playing World of Warcraft. Even the people in the US have been doing just fine. There's clearly enough gaming related platforms out there that are doing perfectly fine, no matter what kind of DDoSing is going on. So, why can't
bigger titles though, right? I mean,
but that's again, I don't care. I'm the customer. I don't care. I'm not a part of the CSM anymore. I don't have to be understanding with CCP anymore. I can just sit back, be the customer, and I can say, I don't give a shit if Blizzard or Steam is way bigger than CCP, right?
You didn't have
At the end of the day, I want to play the game.
Either.
So from what I understand, and this is like part of the problem is since CCP hasn't come out and said anything, all of the ideas that we have as a community are like pure speculation. But the one that I've seen over and over and over again is that there is like CCP does have DDoS mitigation services. They have different companies for different areas, right? So they have got a European one, they've got a one that services like the Russian area, and then they've got one that services the US and specifically like East Coast US. And apparently the company is like has a track record, like the DDoS mitigation company has a track record of like screwing up for the East Coast US. So, you know, maybe it's not CCP's fault. Maybe it's this DDoS mitigation services like people.
They're probably behind all that shit.
Make
What
their
a
own.
that would be.
Yeah,
No,
make their
well,
own.
if you want to sell DDoS protection, guess what? You're very interested in having a lot of DDoS attacks, right?
Yeah, but you got to protect them. Like you got to deliver when the time
Well,
comes. And,
no, it's way easier for you to protect against your own attacks then.
but they're not.
This is why the survey is helpful though, because if CCP knows that this company they're paying is not doing a good service, they can find another company.
Yeah, so maybe that's what they're doing now. Like maybe that's what the silence is. It's like, hey, we're panicking to get new DDoS mitigation software and services working for you guys, and as soon as that comes online, we can make a statement. But like the one frustrating, like Killaby is frustrated that he can't get his fix, right? I'm just frustrated that they haven't said anything, and I understand like why they're not saying anything, but it's just still frustrating to me.
Yeah, that's again why we put out a PSA, which is very rare. We only do it when we need players not to miss something that they're going to miss. In this case, we felt like there was such a void from CCP on what's going on that we, at least for our 3,200 players, we were going to say, hey, here are some options. See if they work for you. They've had mixed results. Just to put something out there to say, like, there is some progress on this. But it seems to have cleared up for some people last night and today. I saw 30,000 people online yesterday. So but the problem is the intermittent quality of it, right? So if you're in a ship and you get disconnected,
that's what really grinds my gears, right? Like, so there are people that can play the game just fine, but there's no chat servers, and I think that's like 90% of the people. But for me, like on the East Coast of the US, we can't even physically get in, so we just have to look at that little thing like 31,000 people are playing and you're not. Ha ha ha! It's just like it makes me want to like smash something.
Just
these
rubs
are
it
all
right
the
in.
people at the party that you're not invited to.
Yeah, exactly.
But even if you can log in, like I had some ops lined up and stuff, but obviously it's like blackout. I need targets in space. If there's no targets, like what do I undock for? And then, people are going to have issues. It's just going to be like a massive headache. And, so I had to cancel like two or three ops.
Oh,
and it's
the
just,
worst. The worst.
This morning I had to, me and Nidus had to coordinate, a very big attack on a Keepstar, which we're going to talk about later, and without any kind of in-game chats. And that's really painful. Trying to do Logi cap chains without an in-game chat is painful. And anything, like we couldn't do any MOTDs. We had to do it all on Discord, which is doing just fine.
And what if you're an alliance that lives on the East Coast here? Like, what if you're a small USTZ alliance and people are just hammering your structures and you literally cannot log in to do anything about it? Like, I saw some.
I've heard that's happening.
Yeah.
I've heard, right?
Well, hope you don't live in a wormhole and you have asset safety,
Yeah, imagine you're a small like USTZ alliance that lives in a wormhole. All your stuff is gone, like literally gone. You have no ability to get it back. By now, it's
this is chaos 2.0. I like it.
Hopefully that doesn't happen. Hopefully, like no little wormhole group is getting like just hammered. So I'm sure now that we like brought it to people's attention, someone's going to start looking for US time zone wormhole groups just to take all their stuff.
Just put a target on their back.
Sorry, guys.
But I have heard that the repercussions of this for players are, we just heard this morning, just a few minutes ago, that somebody in Fountain lost a Nix, right? And his excuse was, I got disconnected. So I feel like everybody that gets destroyed in these last 5 days has a case to say, I need to be reimbursed, please.
Yeah, I mean, you can't see local, so, and that's, it's not a blackout thing. It's just like a mistake thing.
Every super, every Oracle, and everyone who loses a ship in the abyss, log a ticket and get your shit back. Right?
Now, we've had these attacks before. DDoS 2011, this spring, it was actually like 2 weeks before what we call the Summer of Rage. And those DDoS attacks were actually performed by EVE players, some EVE players. One was known as, well, I don't remember his name. It was Biggins, who has a story that you've got of anonymous, and he created a different hacker group called LUL. What was it called? LUL something? Did you guys? What was it? LulSec. Yeah, LOLSEC. LulSec, and I think that was based on EVE Online, right? Nullsec, lowsec, highsec, and LulSec. LUL. Yeah. Well, anyway, that guy and his guys were bombing CCP after basically Incarna came out. I think they were disappointed in it or something. I don't know what his motives were for that, but that was pretty frustrating. It all the anger that you're seeing now was back there in 2011 with an expansion that wasn't really hitting the mark for a lot of people. And then it just snowballed into a really bad era for EVE Online. It really was a shock to the company. I hope we're not there, but 5 days of intermittent EVE Online does a lot of bad for players on an individual level. One is it breaks the habit of playing EVE Online, and the other, if important things are happening that you've built up to, like structures and solve and all that, you can't see that get degraded when you are helpless doing it.
And I will say, like, the LulSec thing, there's actually another group that was responsible, or like partially responsible as well. I think they called themselves Lizard Squad or something. And CCP actually did put together, I was talking to CCP Srigs at the time because I was on the CSM, and he was like the CCP Peligro of the time. So he was the anti-botting like type of guy, security guy. Mm-hmm. And CCP had actually put together like a dossier against one of the groups that was DDoSing them, and it actually led to one of the members being put in jail. So I kind of hope that that's what's happening this time too.
Well, it's funny because people think that it's a disgruntled botter because there was a ban wave and all that, but this also times really well with a lot of political events in real life, which we won't go into, but they came and went a few days ago, actually, when this started. And then you also had the impeachment of the American president, which is happening. And so both these things are they happen within hours of each other, right? And then you have these DDoS attacks. Plus, you also have, a few weeks ago, the United States killed an official from Iran. And so then you start thinking, like, is this an international problem or is this specific to
the one like kind of good thing is that it happened right after the Plex for Good campaign. So everyone was still able to do the Plex for Good stuff to raise money for the Icelandic Red Cross and for the Australian wildfires. So small little piece of joy.
All right. Anything else on this?
Nope. Can't wait to log back in. I'm very excited. Wanna be able to do stuff. Want to be able to shoot stuff with the boys.
Well, let's talk about some more. Pando Killaby, what's going on in the north?
How far back do you want me to run it? Because clearly I've already said a bunch of times what's going on a bunch of different TISs.
Yeah.
For a while, huh?
Different podcasts, though. There's a lot of people pick it up from like last week.
All right, that's fair enough. So there's been an ongoing campaign by PanFam in Tino for quite some time. It started before Christmas even. We've then struggled a while to make some major progress because of the way that that coalition had timed all their structures, because it was in Chinese time zone mostly, and we don't really have a strong Chinese time zone. But last couple of weeks, a bunch of big things happened. One really big thing was that FRT, which is obviously a very, very big Chinese alliance, moved up, deployed to our staging, and started assisting us in the campaign. And also, well, I guess that sort of started a kind of a chain reaction. So FRT moved up. It started giving us a big numbers advantage in Chinese time zone. And we've started to go through iHubs and go through structures that were were timed for Chinese time. So we managed to get the upper hand and beat them in that time zone. So last week we managed to kill the iHub in ZH3 in Tino, which is which used to be the Raja Regiment staging, which they also have a keep star in. And that iHub dying basically resulted in our abandoning the keep star and abandoning Tino and moving out of the place. And on Friday, we decided to put the keep star in the reinforce. We've been looking at how to kill it for a bit, but now this opportunity was pretty good. So we decided to reinforce the keep star, and to this morning at 12:09 Eve time, well, I guess midday, we pushed it into the final timer, which is going to be on Wednesday. And one other big thing that happened is that Goons, they formed a new ZIG. ZIGs are kind of focus groups that parts of Goons can join when they feel like having some fun and not just sitting and sucking on spot 24/7 in Delve. They can join a ZIG and they can basically go out and do some PvP. This ZIG is called Goon Swarm Expeditionary Force or something. I think they call it GEF. And it's basically kind of an experimental ZIG. They really only have experimental doctrines in that ZIG as well. So we'll see how effective it's going to be. But they moved their fleets yesterday, actually. They had their fireside chat yesterday, and then after the fireside, they moved a bunch of people from Delve to their current staging in PF Tech, which is in Vino, and they started forming up for stuff. That's basically what's going on right now. So we have Goons who have now deployed a SIG to assist that coalition, and we'll see how that is going to affect things. I have to say the first two form-ups, they formed up a fleet this morning for the Keepstar timer. They ended up going to Decline because we had Test create some IHUB timers in Decline at the same time as the Keepstar came out. We coordinated with Test to make sure that that coalition basically had to choose, are we going to let IHUBs in Decline, which is their core home region, are we going to let IHUBs in Decline die, or are we going to go defend the Keepstar? They ended up deciding to go for the IHUBs, which makes perfect sense. They weren't able to contest us anyways on the Keepstar. We had a massive form up from us and FRT and everybody involved. So they decided to go defend those IHUBs. And the fleet the Goons formed for that wasn't very big. And then they also formed in USTZ last night, which actually was Asher himself, who is sort of one of the biggest FCs that Goons have, right? And I think he only got like 80 Typhoons or something, which wasn't very impressive either. So we'll have to see if the numbers pick up. If they don't, then I don't think their deployment is going to have any effect at all on the campaign, because they're not going to achieve much with the numbers that we've seen in those first two form-ups. But I'm pretty sure that it is going to pick up. And then it should probably have some effect of some kind. I'm looking forward to it, because at the moment, that coalition can't contest us at all, right? And we're just going to roll over them. So it depends how far it's going to go. Basically, the question is now, how far are going to let Goons push us until they say, well, we don't want to lose this ally in the north or something. And then if they end up moving their super fleet, if that's ever going to happen, if they decide to move their super fleet up to assist and move all of Goonswarm, then that's obviously a whole different story. But for now, I don't think that's going to happen. So we'll have to see how things go from here.
Just to refine just a few things that Killaby had mentioned, because he's like, he's the top of the top when it comes to FCs. Like Killaby and Pando, they're like they're up here. But if there's anything that you guys missed, like a SIG is short for special interest group, right? It's think of it like a corp within a corp, or a small like sub corp within an alliance, or in this case within the Imperium, right? So you can still stay in your corp, but so you can join this other SIG and deploy and go have some fun. So it's kind of like the corp structure that the goons have implemented, that Test has copied, various other people have copied to great success. But it's interesting that you are mentioning, Killaby, like the implications of what could happen, right? Do you think the Goon Swarm or the Imperium side will want to prop up Darkness, or do you think that they'll like kind of want them to fall so they can then scoop the little pieces there together? Like the really interesting story for me is because it's like an area that we don't get to see too much. It's like the two Chinese like groups like starting to have like a little bit of hate for one another. So Fraternity versus Rager Regiment and stuff like that.
Yep. So I think that goons wanting that coalition to die so they can scoop up is definitely a possibility. That's something that goons have done in the past. And, you know, I get maybe saying wanting them to die is a bit harsh, but I don't think they would mind it all that much, because obviously if GOTG were to fall apart because of what we're doing to them at the moment, those people that are going to end up going somewhere else aren't likely to go to the people that destroyed them, right? So there's only really two places they can go, which is either Test or Goons, which would both be beneficial to the Imperium in the long run. So I guess that, you know, that could happen.
They wouldn't go to Test though, would they?
Well, they could. You never know. People like Test. It's fun to be in Test. That's what I've been told.
Is it though?
I mean, I don't know.
It's the same fun as everywhere.
Getting yelled at by Progot sounds pretty fun. It's always fun to hear Progot.
But yeah, he said he's not as ragey as people make him out.
No, he's not. But sometimes he is. But yeah, that's basically the whole thing. We'll see how things play out. At the moment, at least, we're just finishing up Tino, right? I don't want to, because saying something like that coalition is going to fall apart is going like very, very far ahead. Because right now we're just finishing up Tino, which is one of the three regions that they live in. So we're about done with 3/4 of Tino in terms of killing the iHubs and replacing them with our own. So we've got like 1/4 in Tino to go. This Keepstar dying would obviously seal that up, basically. So if the Keepstar dies on Wednesday, we can basically finish up Tino, but then we're still looking at Branch, and we're still looking at Decline, and Decline is going to be a whole different story, right? Because it's a whole lot easier.
Historically, that region's been a tough nut to crack, right?
Yeah.
Like
Why is it so tough?
It's like the I don't know. I always found it very hard to attack just because of the jump ranges. Like you have to like fully commit to go inside and kind of take things. But that was a different era of EVE Online, so possibly that's not a very good statement to make. But another thing is like goons had been there forever, and they were kind of hard to break down. So it could just be just by virtue of who used to live there.
But the geography of the place is different than any other system or region that I've seen, because it's very long, so you can't cover it. When you jump in ships, it depends on a 5-year light range, which is basically a circle around your ship, which means in order to commit to that region to attack it, you have to jump into it. You have to jump into the middle of the region to reach the end of the region.
Yeah, you have to really commit if you want to invade it, right? You can't just sit in Venal and poke at it. Well, you can, but you would have to jump a gate jump into Declan and then harass, which, you know, is troublesome.
Yeah, McLeod, if you could bring up Dotlan and show Decline on Dotlan, we can look at it. It's interesting because it's kind of long, whereas other regions are more circular. So your jump range is more effective in the circular, rounder regions.
I think on Dotlan it probably looks pretty normal. On the in-game map, you can see it easily, though.
Oh, I meant the universe map where you could see the.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, you see how long that. Well, when it gets up there. Anyway, so we'll look at that. Just observe that.
when you talk about alliances in EVE Online, there are a few. Yeah, there you go. So that's like that shows the geography of Declan really, really well.
Yeah, it doesn't have close neighbors like other areas, right? It's out kind of on its own. So you can't really bomb it from other regions very well. By bomb, I mean jump into it because 5 light year range.
Yeah, so the way that we're going at the moment, we would end up going into DK UK probably, which is the branch system that goes into Decline. And that is always very difficult to break through a big regional gate like that, right? So that's why I'm saying, I don't want to jump too far ahead. For now, the focus is obviously on Wednesday and making sure that keeps that eyes. It comes out at 1000, 10 something. I think it's 10:09, which makes it a really interesting spot because it's before downtime, and I could actually encourage that coalition and the allies to make some kind of a play with caps, with super caps even maybe, because they know that downtime is going to hit, right? And they can always fall back to it. We'll see if that's something they will consider. Obviously, it puts them at risk as well, because if they then do some kind of pre-downtime play, it fails, and we have complete control after downtime. We can pull some UALX meme and try to, I don't know, keep some of them there or kill some shit while they try to log it back in, So it's a kind of an interesting time for the actual keep final timer, and I'm very curious to see how that's going to play out. But today the armor timer was very clean. There was no contest whatsoever. We just jumped in a bunch of Titans with FRT and hours at range to put it into final. We never really did anything with subcaps or the rest of our capital fleet. We were kind of just hanging back and waiting. Something's going to happen.
Sword Dragon has like led a coalition of some form or another for a very, very long time. And part of it is always predicated on he has like one really, really strong time zone contingency that most people don't have. For a while it was Australian. Now it's kind of like Australian and China time zone. Like he makes allies with people that other people kind of may have forgotten about or didn't see as valuable. And so like his China time zone can be very, very strong. Like that's how he's always avoided attacks. Like historically, he just sets it for a time zone that no one else can contest him in. He's the biggest swinging guy in there for that time zone. So he just outlasts and outwithers it. So it'll be interesting to see like how he responds to something like this. I would imagine he would just focus on Declan, right? Just make that as hard to get, because who cares about the superfluous regions, right? Like they're just what they are.
Yeah, the problem is, right, that this is kind of like his one-trick pony thing, like his strategy. And the problem now with that is that it's just not going to work out anymore, because we have VVV, we have FRT, we have MSN. That's three alliances, Chinese alliances. FRT is obviously well known to everybody. VVV and MSN are kind of new to TQ, so they're not as known. But VVV has grown incredibly over the last couple of weeks and months, because they've been with us on this deployment from the start. And at the first couple of fleets, they were in condors. They were in frigates, T1 frigates, flying around trying to kill enemy Entoses, right? And now they are flying Munins, they're flying Hurricanes, they're flying, funnily enough, they like their Dominic's doctrine as well, which is kind of weird.
That's so clowny just to see a bunch of Domis out there.
Just like, Domis.
It just drives me wild. I love it. But and Fraternity have a chip on their shoulder too. They just got out of this big war where they kind of had to move homes. They had to like kind of crash on the couch a little bit. So they feel like they've got something to prove. So I think this is a really good spot for them to see if, hey, can they step up to the big bad up there and try and take something down.
Why are we giggling at Domis?
Because in the current meta, like Domis were a good doctrine around the time of the Halloween war, right? Back in BTEC-R, people would actually feel Dominix as a subcap doctrine, but they haven't probably been trash ever since as a doctrine, and to comparing them to other doctrines that are out there, right? Obviously, Dominixes can work if you fight something weird or if your enemy's really bad, but if you look at it on a competitive level, Dominixes just aren't a very good battleship at the moment. I would argue that the goons with their Typhoons, which are also a historically very bad battleship, would probably still be able to beat Dominixes. It would be kind of a fight of cripples. I would actually love to see a Typhoon versus Domi fight. It would be an amazing fleet fight, right? Because it's two really shitty comms, just fighting it out. It would be pretty fun to watch, I think.
Well, one advantage that Domis have is you can assign all your DPS, right? So I'm not sure. I don't want to throw around accusations or any of the shit, but let's say they're just like, they have a lot of multi-boxing people. So it might just be one of the reasons why they went for it. And of course, main reason I believe is most of their characters could fly Domis because they're care bearing in them, right? So they're skillful.
That makes sense because they trade the lenti anyways, yeah.
And then they bang the drums, and everyone can bring every single care bearer a character they've got. So their numbers are going to be like way bigger in those fleets than if they would form units, which nobody has skilled yet because they're skilling for Domis first to make money, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, yeah.
I mean, that's exactly why Drakes were big when Drakes got huge, right? Because Drake was the number one PvE ship in the game at the time. When you have all these people that have trained for Vexor Navy issues, shoving them into a Domi isn't that big of a stretch, right? They've all got skills for it, as Pando says. So that could play into it in a real big way.
I didn't ever think about that strategy as trying to make war machines out of farming machines so that the farmers could go to war too.
Yeah, that's basically what they're doing, huh?
It works out really well for them. We had a discussion about what doctrine they were bringing for this Keeps That Timer this morning, and we the VVVCO, he actually said he wanted to bring Foons, but our campaign commander told him Foons aren't really going to be not Foons, Domis aren't really going to be good for this kind of timer. Can you please bring Hurricanes, right? Is what he told him. He's like, yeah, sure, we can bring Hurricanes and some Harpies if you want for tackle, but we're going to lose, like he said, I think he said like 100 people because we're flying Hurricanes instead of Domis, right? So what Pano is saying is definitely right. Everybody can just get into a Domi because they were training for drones and Vexor Navy issue anyways. And a lot of those people, because they're so new to TQ, they're focusing on making money first. They're focusing on training that Vexor Navy and the Dominics first. And they can't even fly a Hurricane yet because it's just on the bottom of their training queue, right? So certainly a factor. But yeah, they've been growing incredibly, like on an incredible rate, and they're fielding very, very big fleets. Just like FRT is completely ridiculous. Obviously, FRT I think this morning had a full fleet of subs, and then they had another fleet with like another 180-man fleet. They had like 90 Titans on their own, right? So that was as many Titans as we had with NC and PL combined, just by FRT. So that's something that really, really made us do some big steps in this campaign, is that we've gathered these big Chinese allies around us, and they're working very closely with us, and it's been really good working with them as well. Like it's the communication issues aren't really there. Yeah, it's a good place to be in at the moment. We're definitely on a roll, as people would say. We'll see how long it'll last.
Yeah, it's definitely something to look at. Sorry, go ahead, Bando.
Fraternity just came out of a war, right? So it's a well-oiled machine at this point, I would guess. So they're very used at coding and stuff like this.
And if you look at the last MER, like they've been making some bank very quietly. Like they're reaching delve numbers almost in that area.
I
didn't have to see the MER.
Well, the MER was delve was like, as far as NPC kills, which is just ratting, it's not mining. So mining's a different situation, but just ratting, Awasa itself was already over 2/3 what delve is, which is pretty high. But if you look at the following 2 or 3 systems, 2 out of those 3 were Fraternity as well. So if you put those 3 systems together, they're actually over delve in numbers in that way. They're basically harvesting harder than delve.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say, I didn't have to see the MER to notice, because like whenever I go hunt, I check the map and I can just see, like, ever since after that whole war, that whole region there, like, just lit up, right? Easy to find targets, but at the same time, they're easily blobbing you too, and the response is super quick and well organized. So it was tough to get any kills there.
So you could tell just in the game, you could tell that there was a lot of activity over there? Oh,
yes, easy. You just press F10 and, people in space, you can see it.
Wild. So what's this about? So Fraternity is helping PL and NC up north against Dead Coalition.
And Horde is, I want to Don't forget
too.
Horde, right? 'Cause
Sorry,
they're not
right.
deployed up here yet, but they're coming up with big fleets every single time as well. So
We'll talk about Horde.
It's the whole PanFam plus FRT and BBV, MSN, basically.
Panda fam.
Big blob of people.
So that is the group that attacking Dead Coalition, and Test also, because Vili demanded it, he declared it, went up there to attack Dead Coalition at the same time. So technically are Fraternity and Test allies against Dead Coalition?
Well, we've obviously Test are working on a different side of this campaign, and it would be lying to say that we didn't kind of look at this. Obviously, FRT isn't very eager to work with Test at all. So we're making sure that FRT is mainly focusing with us on Tino branch. And like I said, for example, for this morning, we had Test create timers in Decline at the same time that, so basically those iHubs came out at the same time that the Keepstar came out, right? So that way we put some extra pressure onto Dead Coalition, and actually they managed to kill, I think, 1 or 2 iHubs in Decline, which is big, right? Because it's a home region. Those weren't any important systems as far as I can tell, but still, you don't want to lose iHubs in your core region, because that throws, you can't put any Sino-jammers up in that system, you can't put any jump grades down in there, right? For until the strategic index goes back up, which sucks. So they're working on 2 different sides of this conflict, and that's on purpose. I wouldn't call them allies. They're just fighting the same enemy.
I gotcha. All right, so they bump into each other, they'll shoot each other second, not first.
Yeah, we'll see what happens when they bump into each other.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. Pando, what do you were up there for a while, right? Early on?
Yeah, we were actually deploying up there thinking we could pick some tests, some fights up in the early stages, I would say. I wouldn't say early. You guys have been there for like at least a month at the time. In Tino. But then the same thing happened to us that basically happened to PanFam. There's no room for you to make progress if everything is like in the opposite time zone. And because we had to deploy fairly spontaneous, and there was like Eve London in between, and we couldn't get started right away. Everything was timed for US time zone. It was hostile and all friendly or semi-friendly, GTG or DeadCo stuff was all timed for the AU time zone or Chinese time zone. So we were basically there with our EU time zone guys, and everything was timed in 2 different time zones. So we were just basically sitting there thinking, well, what are we going to do with this? Like, are we going to like sit here and pretend and spin a narrative or whatever? Or do we just like take our guys, a step back? And then the whole test thing kicked off. And that got us kind of excited. But then again, test subcap numbers are just massive against ours. So, then it is EU time zone, but, how are you going to deal with that? So we used our times for that. Test wasn't happy about that part. And they, stopped basically or went on a break. And now we are basically looking at this thinking, like, how do we approach this the best way? Because, like, obviously, we were involved. We're basically still involved, and we have to make a decision, like how we get involved actively again. We're just basically waiting to see what is actually happening. It's not that easy to tell. Is PanFam going to push into Decline? That's the big question. I feel like.
Well, I saw a timer go up there. I don't even think Killaby knows though. Or he's not telling.
So by the time that decision has to be made, that could be in a month, that could be in like 2 months, who knows, right?
Exactly.
A lot of stuff can change in that time.
So it's very far out still. At the moment, we're not even looking at Decline because we have, like, that's one mistake I think people tend to make is trying to plan their campaigns like 3-4 months ahead. And I know that people like Artyh always like to claim that, everything that has happened in the last 3 years was all according to his great plan, like Darth Sidious. But that's not really how EVE works for 99% of the people. And we don't look at Decline while we're not even done with Teen Land or Branch, because that's just thinking like 4 steps ahead, and it's unnecessary.
Yeah, it's really setting yourself up for failure as well, because like if you tell everyone like, guys, we're going to Declan, and then you get one little hiccup on the way, the wheels just fall off the bus.
The wheels on the bus. All right, so what's the true status between initiative and test? You kind of harassed them pretty hard when they're in the middle of a war. Have they kind of forgiven you for that, or?
Oh, we didn't arrest them all that much. I mean, you mean with like hunting their rockets and shit?
Yeah. Or are you taking wormholes with your Stuka fleets?
We harassed everyone with them. So, like, we didn't pick them out. They just had the biggest, targets in space. Like, if I have the choice, 100% tackle on tests, rockets, 3 jumps out, or like 2 pan-fam rockets, 7 jumps out from our wormhole, like, guess what? We're gonna go for the test rockets, and they were just like super active, and they presented a good target. From my point of view, I never had any like drama with test or any FCs.
So you're good with them.
Well, I wouldn't say that.
Okay.
Because like obviously when it comes to like strategic stuff, it's not me making the calls there. I'm basically just FCing, right? But yeah. So I mean, it played a big role with the whole Keepstar. I don't know if you guys remember the Keepstar from Rocket X and the guys. I forgot the system. That Snuff Rev.
Oh, yes.
And then we showed up to help Snuff. And then
Kamal Keepstar, yes.
And then there was some shady shit happening, which obviously Test is going to deny now. Like, Willy is going to be mad at me for saying that, but like, they were trying to kind of trick us into dropping our supers, thinking Test is not going to contest it, while then having a way out, dropping them anyway, shitting on us with everything they have, and then saying, well, we never actually said it, kind of the Snuff way, which they complained about before, right? Snuff did it to them. But yeah, so, Shines was super mad about it. It was kind of Shines op. And yeah, so that definitely plays a big role.
But if one thing is true in Eve, and this campaign in the North is kind of true, that Eve people have like kind of short memories, or rather, they've got eidetic memories that never forget, but they don't hold grudges for that long, especially when they have a target that they can go. So you've got Test and PanFam and Fraternity all kind of work against the same target, where a year ago, not even a year ago, 6 months ago, they were at each other's throat. Anything can happen.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, you have Test on the field, essentially not shooting Fraternity, and I'm hearing that they do have some kind of a backroom deal not to actually shoot each other, and you have Test basically on the opposing side of Goonswarm. When last summer you had the Imperial Legacy Super Coalition where both of them were allied, so things change.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, right?
That's what war does, and he brings together people.
We like it. Conflict of motivations, super interesting.
I'd rather have more grudges in the game than more people blowing up easily within a day. Forget about like year-long stuff. Kind of makes me sad, I have to say.
Yeah, and so we did have somebody give us a huge amount of updates on Test. Ron USMC, he's taking a break from EVE Online right now. I think he's playing Tarkov a lot, but it's a break. He'll be back, and but he's not FCing for Test anymore. But he was the one that he was spending a lot of time defending against Pando in the south there in Test home territory.
You make it out like we were running a campaign against them while they were at war. What happened? So let me just remind people. They were at war against Fraternity, and we only showed up for like 1 or 2 timers and bombed a few Eagles and shit. And that was like under specific circumstances, because there is this deal in place, right? So we cannot take a fight in their home regions, which is very clearly stated in the whole deal. Like these and these and these and these regions, we cannot take part in strategic ops and stuff like this, or hinder them on doing stuff, whatever, right? And then we even stayed out of the entire thing, because we felt like it's shady to then say, okay, the IOP is next door, and then suddenly we shown up and bombed them. But if they jump the gate, then suddenly it's a strategic target in, let's say, what's one of the home regions like Immensee, right?
Mm-hmm.
So suddenly it wouldn't be, and then we just decided like it's like too shady, and then it's just a big move to go back and forth. And we never hit their raw cards or whatever. Honest chat, obviously they shouldn't be in space at the time, so there wouldn't be a target anyway. So for us, it was just daily business. We were just hunting. I probably would have preferred other targets anyway, because it's easier to kill, right?
Like Brave. Oh, they're still legacy, I guess.
Yeah, well,
I'm going to start a rumor that it was you that softened up Test, got them all mad, and then when Pittsburgh attacked him and knocked the crap out of him, everybody was too frustrated to deal with that. Okay, just a rumor.
Just because you used the Forbidden Fort, dude.
The Forbidden Fort.
He didn't knock the shit out of them though, sadly.
Oh, that's right. He actually got killed doing
Yeah, he got wrecked. He knocked the shit out of goons a week later.
There goes that theory.
Yeah, and I was supposed to actually have a fleet with him that day, with Reds and everything, but there was court issues, so the day was mixed up, and
Well, maybe that's why he lost. You weren't there.
Yeah, that's like, I don't know, maybe. I think it was a Sino issue.
Probably.
People still, and I think people adjusted fairly quickly to the whole Sino situation. I kind of predicted it, saying like it's just going to be a normal thing to have like a shit ton of recons around, but I think. In that op, for example, there was just not enough. They simply didn't have enough recons.
Yeah.
So the first recon died too quick. The second recon was one jump too far, and then they ended up beating Blitz like over time. So I don't know.
How do you guys, all you guys, how are you dealing with the Sino changes? Now it's been a while.
Not at all. Just bring a bunch of recons. It's very easy to do. It's not like instead of moving a ton of inties with Sinos, you just move a ton of recons with Sinos. All it did was increase the Sino cost, and you have to think a bit more carefully what you do with your Titan. Like the other day, I was roaming around my Titan a bit around our staging, and Nidus asked me, "Do you have a recon with you?" I'm like, "No, shit, I completely forgot that I have to have a recon with me now, right?" So then I start basically just dual boxing a recon in my Titan. Yeah,
all these years with fucking Cormac, and then you die because you forgot about the Sino.
Yeah, I forgot a recon. So there's that. It's that's the only thing really. But now on big ops, like this morning, I think in our Super and Titan fleet, we had like 10 recons just sitting around the grids, waiting for me to tell them where to go and light a Sino, basically. So it's not that big of a deal. People can just inject a bunch of recon ults and be done with it.
Yeah,
back in my old man day, you had Sino bombers, right? Like that was the meme. So you just have to train like 2 more skills, and then you've got Sino recons that can just scout you.
But in general, it was a good change, though, right?
Yeah, I think it is a good change as well. Like the Sino change overall is pretty good. I would say there's nothing negative about it really. But obviously, anything that they change like that in the era of injectors is just a joke, because the big groups that have unlimited money, they can just, well, if you inject a recon ult right now, we'll pay for it. There you go. 20 fucking new recon ults right there. It's I don't know. These kind of changes, like, it was a good change in general, because now not every Rockle can just light a Sino, and you can still abuse it. I'm pretty sure if you would talk to Old Maker about this, he would have a very different opinion, because I'm sure that he and his people, the kind of gameplay that he does, has been getting a lot more kills now, that people actually have to be somewhat on the ball, have a recon. If they only have 1 recon, right? Falcon lights the Sino, you shoot it with your bombers, maybe like 1 or 2 facts make it through. Then the defender has to scramble to get another recon there. If you have a bubble on the gate, you can delay him for a while, and by the time all that stuff happened, whatever target you're going for is probably dead, right? So I think the Sino change was really good in that regard. But in terms of planning for big ops, where you actually have a lot of time to prepare, it didn't change anything. It's the spontaneous stuff where it has an effect.
So moving on to our third topic, Pando and Killaby, because I'm just listening to him now thinking I could listen to this all day. And you can too, because Pando has a show called Pando FC Chats, and we carry it on Talking in Stations. So if you're listening to Talking in Stations, you're also getting Pando's FC Chats, but he does those on his own channel. And he had Killaby on a couple weeks ago, I think now. I think it's the latest episode that was published. And what did you guys talk about in that show, Pando?
Oh, we talked about I don't even remember all of it, but like all kinds of stuff. General FCing, maybe like some fights we were both in, fought each other. I think X47 stuff we talked about. We talked about even about like FanFest's experience and shit, because it's going to be my first FanFest this year, and you know, Killaby has been on a FanFest or two.
Oh, you're going?
And oh yes,
you fundraised for this, right?
oh yes.
Nice.
It's not at 100% yet, but yeah, together with the sub money from Twitch, I think I'm going to reach it in the next 2 weeks. So yeah, I'm
That's
looking forward
awesome.
to that one.
FanFest is a great time, and I can't speak highly enough of your FC chats. They're always amazing to listen to. I have a lot of fun listening to them. The one with Killaby, I quite enjoy.
Oh, thanks a lot. Yeah, feedback so far has been great, and yeah, that actually originally it came from you know, fight analysis. Like I was going over a fight, and then you know, talking to people, and then my first guest, it's actually his birthday, was Elo, right? And we just talked about stuff, and people were just, you know, hey, like you should do this all the time. And so it's a weekly thing now, and I moved it to Sundays 2000.
So right after this, really?
Yeah, basically in like 2.5 hours.
Real quick, who do you have today?
Today is going to be Starfleet Commander, who is the CEO and main FC from Volta, who have been like doing cool shit from Terra, which is, you know, kind of, I wouldn't say like it has always been my dream to like operate out of warm space. It's kind of cool though, right? You don't have to care about your rocket saves, and I know Killaby knows what I'm talking about. Like provide the farming ground for your people and, you know, babysit everyone. No, all these guys are basically just there for the good shit, you know, and jump out of wormholes and you know, kill people.
Yeah, Volta.
Yeah,
Volta definitely lived the dream, right?
yeah, kinda, you know.
You get like a dozen nullsec connections. That's mapped for you by someone
but everyone
else.
knows them too. Like everyone knows those connections because they're like on the side of like Eve Scout. So yeah, I don't. There's problems with that too. Obviously, seeding Terra isn't that easy, you know, and all that stuff.
Starfleet Commander, he will be going to his, and he's a name that's been around for many years as an FC and Alliance leader. He will be going to his very first FanFest as well this year. I was talking to him the other day.
Oh, really? Well, we're going to talk about that then today too.
There you go. Elise, have you decided on FanFest yet?
This would be, if I miss this one, this would be the first one I miss in 8 years. So the safe money is I'll probably be there, but as of right now, I don't have everything nailed down yet.
Killaby.
No, I'm not going. But I've been saying that forever now.
So you won't be there.
I won't be, no.
Yeah.
I remember Killaby's first FanFest. It was wild.
I remember too. We talked about that on the Pando chat as well. That was a very good time.
The pony groping story.
The pony groping was not that FanFest. That was a two FanFest later, I think. But
did you see? Like, I had Brisk actually make a thumbnail for the YouTube version of the podcast.
Yeah, I saw it.
A pony. Actually, it wasn't. It's a horse, but hey, it's okay.
One of my fan, I don't want to divert too much, but one of my favorite moments that I'm not sure if Killaby at the time, Pandemic Legion had the most number of people of any alliance going to that FanFest, and the CCB had a competition, and the winners of the competition got an office tour for their entire group. And so PL had an office tour of the CCP offices, and there were like 90 of us, so it was like completely unruly, and kind of probably the last time that they'll ever do office tours for stuff. But Killaby goes up to Hilmar's like office and sits in his chair. He just like marches through as they're saying, "Oh, this is where Hilmar is." Blah blah. The tour's like turning around, and Killaby just marches into Hilmar's office, sits in his chair, and people start taking pictures. And it was the funniest thing.
Yeah, apparently they didn't like that because there could have been something on that screen or something. But you know, I was so drunk I couldn't remember anything anyways. That office tour, actually, see, I should have mentioned that during the Pando chat as well, because I remember that was like on the first day of me getting there. So I was like super excited. So I just got to the hotel room and the room with the view. And I got really, like, I started drinking beer, and then Rain, I think it was Rain or Scared Panda, basically gave me like a whiskey cola drink, but it was like 90% whiskey and 10% cola. But I was so excited, so I just drank that, right? And then I was really, really wasted. I remember after the office tour, when we got out of CCP's offices, I fell over the stone in front of their door. I remember that too, yeah. That was a good time. No regrets.
No regrets. Was that did you say that was during FanFest or?
Yeah, well, it was on a Thursday, right? So the day before FanFest, or Wednesday or something.
Well, both you guys are German is your first language, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So are you both like Oktoberfest drinkers? Can you hold your liquor?
That depends. I have my good days and my bad days. I grew up in northern Germany, so we didn't really go to Oktoberfest at all because it's on the other side of Germany. It takes you like 9 hours to get there. But see, the problem is I'm a nerd, right? Like, obviously I'm a gamer. So instead of going out drinking alcohol, I spend most of my time indoors playing computer games. But then when I moved and I got to my town that I now live in, I started making a good friend who's still my best friend to this day. And he started taking me to every single party, like twice a weekend. So, I then started drinking very quickly. But yeah, I have some days where I can drink a lot, and then some days I drink like 3 beer and I'm pretty good in a good mood, Depends.
Are you
I'm also at the age now where I don't really care if I can hold my liquor or not anymore. Like, if I get wasted, I get wasted, whatever. Like, it's fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's basically the same for me. But yeah, on like Eve meets, I've not been to any FanFest. I've been to Eve London and to Init meetups. So I'm always cautious because, like, if you have a beer in your hand, you keep drinking. And when people come up to you because you're in FC and they know you and they always want to buy you a beer and stuff, and you will always have a beer in your hand, right? You'll never. So you have to be aware, I feel like, and then realize before it's too late,
That happened to me at my first G Fleet. There was like this guy from Razer back then when they still existed. He came up to me and he was like, "Dude, can you put this Razer Alliance logo on your forehead, like it was a sticker, and take a picture with me, and then I will buy you a beer?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure thing," because that was an amazing deal. Just get a beer for just putting a sticker on my forehead. I will hold out for that. I will hold out for a beer. No problem. Free beers for everything.
But FanFest isn't just about beers. If you're not a big drinker at all, FanFest is it's very much unlike eVegas, if that's like your only like view of things. There's tons of stuff you can do that is not alcohol related. In fact, alcohol plays like a very minor role.
Yeah,
so
that's
if you're on the fence about going to FanFest, you should absolutely go to FanFest. I remember like the very first FanFest I went to, I was like, I'm not into any of this nerd stuff. I'm not going to like a gaming convention. I don't care how much. And then Shadu said, "Hey, I guess I'll go." And I was like, "I want to meet you." So I went, and then I went to every single one after that because it was just so infectious and so much fun.
I'm on the fence. I want to go, but I don't want to like do a 9-hour flight for 4 days of,
Yeah, from the West Coast US, it's a bit of a stretch.
Also, there's like a coronavirus out there, and I know that people get super sick after conventions.
Please don't let stuff like that actually affect your travel plans. Unless you were planning on going to Wuhan, I think you would perfectly fine to travel anywhere you want to.
it's at the very back of my mind of like airplanes and bugs and stuff like that. But I do want to be there. In fact, I want to work it. I want to do interviews. I want to like do some kind of a presentation, maybe. Like that's when I think about those things. I'm like, yeah, I should do it. I should go.
Yeah, sure. I mean,
and then
you
knowing
guys have
that
been talking, so
you're
you guys
going
have been
and stuff.
talking about getting like super drunk and stuff, but like that's definitely not my plan. To get like super blackout drunk, like I feel like you would be missing a lot then. But you know, getting drunk with your bros at the end of the day, 100%. But I want to wake up the next morning, right?
Hey, I can tell you, I woke up every morning. Let's not talk about the condition I was in, but I woke up. That's what Contabi is for, anyways, Pando. You should know it.
Yeah, maybe I have to get on PanFam level of getting drunk.
No, it's just, I mean, to be fair, like there's YouTube videos of me singing like Barbie Girl in a karaoke bar. That's the kind of level of drunk I get, but just because I feel really comfortable around the spaceship nerds, right? Because I feel like that's in my real life, I always have to hold a little bit back because you want to be taken seriously in your job, right? So when somebody does some shitty Star Wars quote, I kind of want to correct them because they're probably wrong, but then I hold back and I don't because I'm like, you're not that kind of guy. Not in your real world. But then when I'm around EVE nerds, I can just do whatever I want and, you know, it's fine because you can just release it all.
And that's the one amazing thing about FanFest in Reykjavik is the entire town. Like if you go to another EVE meet somewhere else, like you're just this small group of EVE nerds in like a bigger setting. When you're in Reykjavik, the entire town just like completely accepts it, right? Like everywhere you go, you see an EVE player of some sort because the city's so small. And the people that live there, like they know this is a thing that happens. So you'll see like buses with like FanFest logos. If you go to a bar, obviously you'll stand out a little bit, and they'll be like, "Oh, are you here for FanFest?" And like if you're in line for a club, the bouncer will be like, "Oh yeah, I was in AAA for a while. Are they still doing good?" Like these are all like conversations I've had with people.
AAA still doing good. You're like,
I had to break the news to him like pretty gently.
No. Bad idea. You should be like, yeah, man, they're awesome. Can I get into this club?
And yeah, McLeod did remind me, like if you're in like certain flights that when they come to the airport, CCP's at the airport, like a bus to welcome everyone off the plane. Certain flights are on. I'm sure people still do it, but like you can coordinate what flight you take and what seats you are, so you know where EVE people are or where EVE people aren't, if that's your thing. So you can like just a flight from JFK to Reykjavik or to Keflavik. Like I just like the terminal was filled with like 30 or 40 EVE players. It's kind of a fun thing, and that's kind of where it started.
Yeah. Well, I have to make a decision pretty soon because it's coming fast, right? It's like the beginning of April.
Yep.
Right.
Do it.
If you've never been there, you should go. I'd say that too, and then make up your mind. Yeah. But obviously, it's your choice.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see. But I'm glad, Pando, that you're going. I'm glad you're able to fundraise your way to it. I love that. You know, people want to see you so bad, they're going to help you get there. That's great stuff.
Yeah, people have been super supportive. And, you know, I'm not a big fan of the whole, like, streamer donation goal thing, but in this case, I felt like I'll do an exception.
Yeah. And one last thing, Killaby, you did that interview with Pando and stuff. What did you think of it? Did you like it?
I mean, I was there. Of course, I liked it.
When you were
every
done,
show I want to like.
We actually talked like for an hour afterwards too.
Yeah, we talked for a long time after the show. It's always a bit easier when you're off air. You can say a bunch of stuff you can't say on when you're live on Twitch. But it's always fun to talk with other FCs that are on a high level as well. Because we speak the same language, right? Most FCs on a high level, they obviously, you know, you fall in line with your alliance's politics because it's at the end of the day what gets you numbers in Fleet. But most of the high FCs and goons, right? Like, so for example, Jay Amazingness, he probably knows that 95% of the narrative that Mitani spins, you know, is like either weird or a lie or something. But it's fine because he he gets him the numbers in fleet, right? And when you talk just among FCs without any outsiders, without people being present, and when you don't have to sort of maintain the narrative, when you can just talk about it on an FC level, it's always very fun. It's always a very comfortable situation because you can drop all the narrative, you can drop all the guru something, guru goons, guru these guys or whatever. You can just talk about it from an FC perspective, and that's really cool.
It is a very like close fraternity of people, and it always has been too.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's some people that take their alliance a bit too serious and they're very tough to talk to. But fortunately, I've only crossed my ways with those kind of FCs a couple of times, so I'm still okay.
Well, only you guys know, only UFCs. But I would like to
join that club. Just become an FC.
I would like to record you guys.
That would defeat the purpose of it.
No, I didn't.
Have to sneak it. Well, Panda can record you guys. You guys are caught off guard.
No.
Anyway. Well, it's so good that everything's going well, Pando. Got a good podcast going, and you're going to be at FanFest. It's another notch, and I should go so I can meet Pando. And it's good. It's good talking to you, Killaby, and thanks for bringing us up to speed. At least you got anything else you want to talk about?
No, I don't think so. I do think we had one last minute PSA for how to get a good, reliable VPN if you need a VPN. Maybe.
I think we did.
If you're looking to get a VPN, you think that's something you might want to try, I would recommend two things. One, try to find one that has some sort of third-party review of that company. And second, look for one that has a introductory trial period that's for free. Something like a 30-day trial. This way you're not shelling out money to VPN to play a game that you're spending money for.
Last little bit. I don't know if McLeod can find this, but was there this is really funny. Like everything's happening at one time, but Artyh, who is a CSM member, wrote that he said if he had to pick a day where everything ended, it was today. And so then there was a little commiseration committee about how the CSM is being blocked out by a CCP. Did you guys read that thread at all?
Yeah, I read it, and I talked to Artyh in private afterwards as well about it, and I can definitely see where he's coming from.
I have not read it at all. You got the link in the...
Yeah, we'll grab it. Let's see if we can find it. But basically it just says like it's become very toxic. It's almost as bad as CSM used to be. And I think what he means is that CCP isn't really giving them, they're not listening to CSM. And so that's...
It's not just about listening, right? It's also about sharing any sort of information at all.
Right. So in other words, it's not very useful being on CSM right now.
Yeah, according to Artyh, yes.
Right.
I know that Omega, I think, I don't know if he disagreed with it, but he had a different take on it. So obviously it depends who you talk to. I do think, though, that because Artyh doesn't usually tweet this stuff out lightly, right? Artyh is very careful. At least the Artyh I got to know on the CSM, he's a careful person when it comes to the relationship with CCP. So he wouldn't tweet something like that if there wasn't something serious going on. So I definitely believe that there's some merit to it. How bad it really is, we'll probably never know. But it's definitely something like that Artyh wouldn't tweet unless there was something really weird going on.
Well, Artyh's comment was, cryptic and interesting, but if you read the replies in there, it starts to get a little more interesting because you have Celine in there saying, I think he says something along the lines of, I don't know what's going on, but the fact that I was able to unsub last year after 2003 tells me something about the direction of the game. And then you see CCP Falcon, or former CCP Falcon, saying all the feels, and I was like, what's that mean? Because he recently left the company. And so you start to see like people, I think, commiserating is the best way to put it. I mean, other people are like Jin Tan's in there and some other people. Now, I thought he was talking about the trial, the sham trial. And so I was like, yeah, yeah, and Brexit too. Yeah, definitely end of days. But it was about EVE Online.
I think it's kind of weird that Falcon is like commenting on stuff because like nobody, like we don't know the guy. I mean, people might think they know him because he used to be like a community guy and stuff, but that's not him. Like it's not, like he might just do some Reddit posting in there, but it's always from the CCP perspective. And now he suddenly speaks up as if like he was like, it's kind of weird to me. I don't know why.
It's his own voice that he's talking.
Yeah, it's like a different person, right? It's not the guy you used to know or thought you knew.
Yeah,
I will say, having known CCP Falcon as a player, former CCP Falcon as a player, as Verone, there are a lot of overlaps between the way Verone spoke to you and the way CCP Falcon spoke to you.
Yeah,
but then also, like, why did he leave? Or did he get kicked? Or, like, nobody knows, really.
I think that's a story that we'll never know.
I mean, he was there a good long time, so anybody after a while is like needing to have some kind of a change and stuff. But he's still in Iceland, I think. He's still in Iceland. He's playing EVE among other things, but I think he's definitely playing like Tarkov and other stuff. But your community rep, you were plucked from the gamers. He did say when he was working for CCP that even if he left CCP, he would play EVE until the servers went off. So I see him as a super player. And then when he was on the community team, I saw him as like, somebody who understood EVE Online very well in his bones, because he was a great player before. And then, after he's working for CCP, he still remains that great player that he was before. But he had to toe the line for a long time. I have my personal view on it, and I think it's fair game to discuss this, by the way. You guys can admonish me if you think it's not okay to talk about it. But I honestly feel like he was a proponent for blackout and making EVE harder. And, when that went away, I really feel like there was a lot of, well, what do you got? What direction is EVE going in if you're going to keep it easy for everybody in nullsec? And so I don't know, maybe some dissatisfaction with it there, but that is total conjecture.
Interesting line of events for sure. We'll have to see how things play out.
Yeah. Well,
all I'm hoping for is that they manage to stabilize the server soon and we can go from there.
Yeah, let's start there. Okay. Thanks, guys, for showing up today. And we will see you again. If you are not listening to, these are some announcements that you should know. If you are not listening to Today in EVE Online, that is its own podcast that I do every day, every morning we try to do 20 minutes, but it ends up being like an hour and a half. But check that out every day, every weekday. And we even do a Saturday show sometimes. You can find that on Twitch here. We do it live. We put it on YouTube, and then we move it over to its own podcast. Also, look for Pando's FC chats. Those are found on this very feed for Talking in Stations, so you don't need to do much to get that. And yeah, and if you want to support Talking in Stations, you do that through patreon.com/Matterall. And help us out. We have some great new Angel. Anyway, guys that really hit the top tier of donations, I guess, or support, and that's been really awesome, super helpful. Okay, that's it. That's all we got. Artyh, thanks for showing up today. Appreciate it, man.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're gonna have to get more out of you next time. You're super interesting. And Elise Randolph.
Always happy to be here. I'm happy to be here. I can't wait for next week as well. We've got a cool show lined up as well that I thought was today, but I got my dates wrong.
Yeah, I thought it was today too. And that show is...
Should I bury the... Okay, I'll bury the lead a little bit, but It's there's like two groups of players that primarily have been fighting in HiSec for almost a full year, and it's spanned like thousands of different players. It's hit like the big stories with the fight in Heck, and it's kind of been like a slow burn throughout the process. And that entire war is kind of finally culminated this week. Like one group offered like actual surrender terms and everything.
Wow.
So it's really fascinating. It's like a very EVE Online story that involves just these groups in HiSec.
Nice. We'll cover that next week. Killaby and Pando, thank you guys for showing up.
Yep. Thanks for having me as usual. Very fun.
Yep. Thanks.
All right, Pando, we'll see you in a bit when you do your FC chat this week at 2000.
Yep. In 2 hours.
Excellent. What's your channel there so people know?
Twitch TV/Zepando. That's ZEH Pando. Because Pando was already used.
Yeah.
So, and that dude doesn't even do anything with it. Already.
Yeah. Squatter. The fake Pando out of there. There is another Matterall, by the way. If you look up Matterall, there's some kind of a streamer, young, handsome guy. Not me for sure. But anyway, I think he did some. Anyway, I won't go into it. But there is another Matterall. It's kind of funny. I think I hopped on his train. He probably had it first. Okay, McLeod, thanks very much for engineering. And thank you for showing up today and listening to Talking in Stations. We will see you during the week and then again in midweek and also a week from today. Take care, everyone.